And welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And we're in the middle of season two, or are we at the beginning of season two? I can never tell. It's like that Winston Churchill saying, this is not the beginning of the end. It's not even the end of the beginning, or whatever it is he says. I don't know. I'm just riffing at this point. But we're kicking off season two with more guests, more reviews, and pretty soon we're going to be doing more topic episodes. But remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos with everyone that you know. Please help the channel grow and help the audience grow. We are looking to push to, I don't know, 100 subs, maybe more. If we can get to 2,000, that'd be great. Um, but today we have a great guest. We've got Brittany from the Catfly Film Festival based out of Asheville on the show, and we're going to chat a little bit about everything about the Asheville film scene, the indie film scene, and if we have some time, just maybe riff and we'll talk about her favorite movie and TV show. But Brittany, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, and it took quite a while to nail down a date, because I remember I emailed you. I want to say, what was it, last summer, probably like July or August, and we were just doing a do-si-do of trying to figure out when to do it. So it took us a while, but we finally did it, Brittany. So here
Here
we
we
are.
are. I'm so glad we did. Sorry it took forever.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I mean, what I find really fascinating is the fact that at the beginning of the year, so like, would you say like the first 5 or 6 months, there's nothing going on, but as soon as September hits, that's when every film festival in the country just races off, and they're like, yeah, I can't talk to you until January, because we're busy getting the film festival set up. So I figured you're probably part of that wave when I reached out to you. You were just getting ramped up.
Yeah, totally. I'm also a stagehand as my day job, so concert season is also pretty big in the fall as well.
Really? Because I always thought concert
Mhm.
season kind of kicked off after Memorial Day. Kind of like with the whole logic of the summer blockbuster. Like as soon as Memorial Day hits, that's when all the concerts and big movies
Oh
come
yeah.
out.
It happens then and then it goes balls to the wall until November 1st, and then that's when it gets quiet again.
So
Once Halloween is through.
so is it anything like like working as a PA, or as a grip, or working on a film set in general? Like, is it that stressful or even more?
Rock and roll is way more chill, I will say. I'm a concert stagehand and lighting designer at the Orange Peel, and then I'm a stagehand at Rabbit Rabbit as well. And it's pretty similar in terms of how you work. It's a lot of physicality, it's a lot of moving things around, it's a lot of logistics, and it's a lot of an art form, especially when you're in the lighting department. So very
Yeah.
similar to film, and that's how I actually went that direction first. Studied film in school. I got a degree in mass communications from UNC Asheville with a concentration in film and visual media. Um, and then yeah, I just like kind of did everything I could in film. There's not a lot of film work in Asheville right now, but it's still like something I love. Indie film is very strong here. So if you have the will, there's a way.
And I was gonna say, y- because usually when people think about studying film in North Carolina, your options are pretty limited. Because I remember, as a senior in high school, I made the resolution, yes, I'm going to go and study film. That's what I want to do. But
Mhm.
at the time, people were telling me, yeah, if you really want to study film, you either have to go to NCSA up in Winston, or you have to go to UNCW.
Mhm.
So I was a bit surprised to learn that Greensboro had that program. So as soon as I found out, I jumped at the chance. Why didn't you? I mean, did you ever make an attempt or try to apply to those big schools? I guess out east.
Yeah, I actually applied to UNCW and I just like went to like the tour of the school and just decided it wasn't quite for me. Um and I like looked at a lot of different schools in the UNC system. That was like my one role for my parents is like, we want you to go to college. Like that's really important, but please, please, please pick something in the public school of North Carolina system. Like it will be
Right.
so expensive to go anywhere else. So I limited my search to basically UNC system schools. And I don't know. I started off my journey at ECU because it was the closest place to my home. I'm from Little Washington, North Carolina, and ECU is in Greenville, 20 20 minutes away.
Hmm.
And my best friend went there too. He lived 2 floors above me in the same dorm room, and that was amazing. And I don't know. I loved Asheville, always loved Asheville, and just ended up transferring into UNC Asheville because this was the town for me and it felt like home.
Yeah, and the thing is that Asheville is a magical place, and I don't mean that in in the any weird sense. Like it really is a pretty beautiful place to go to. Well, I guess I should say Western North Carolina in general because I remember a lot of several students who were filmmakers at UNC Greensboro. They ended up transferring to like App State over in Boone.
I
So
I know folks who went to App State for audio engineering. They've got good technical programs, and I know a lot of people who went to Western for their TV and television and movie production programs.
I heard about that, and I was really surprised because they're out in the middle of nowhere, like literally out in the middle of nowhere, and they have that.
Yes, I probably should have gone to Western, but I loved UNCA, and I did like the fact that communications was like a wider sort of thing, so I could do more than just film when I got done, just in case it didn't work out. I was always afraid of like, if being an artist doesn't work out, I can always be a marketing person, you know.
Right. So I do want to I do want to talk to you a little bit about what you're studying over there because unlike the universities out east, most universities have a communications program. They're kind of you really don't know what you're studying unless you have someone to tell you like what to study. What was it like being a communications major?
It was cool because it was a blend of video, news writing, and PR. So like it was a very easy to go a multitude of directions. So I could be a journalism person if I wanted to and like carry my camera and follow like Anthony Bourdain, or it would be very easy to like write for news. Um Also, like managing like brands and things were part of it. Like one of my favorite classes was media aesthetics, and it was just all about like brands and like how to make the art match the message. And I found that to be totally fascinating. And then yeah, and then standard video production was a great way to just be able to go straight into the film industry when I was done as well.
Now, did you have any plans to go into the film industry, or was that something that you thought it would be nice, but if I don't get in, it's not a big deal?
Oh, film has always been the goal, but it's like, what if I need a survival job? So I come from a background of like being around lots of musicians and things, and musicians always have their air quotes survival job, right? So I was always like, well, if I need a survival job, I need some skills other than just how to set up a light or whatever. So
Right.
it was like I need to know how to do a multitude of things, which has like served me well throughout my history, I think. I also have a sales background, my mass comm degree, which was a blend, a blend of like art and more tactile skills. Got me my first job at a screen printing shop, which was not a typical way of a filmmaker, I think, but it was very cool to get they always say that a salesperson translate really well into producer skills. So if you can like make sales and make the connections and like bring together everything such as like the deadlines with the physical production of the thing, then you can be a really good producer as well.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you say that because with with previous guests, whenever I've chatted with them about what's it like to be a producer, what goes into a production, a lot of them do come from that sales background or business background, which is fascinating because you never really think about it until you actually talk to someone, and then when they describe it, it's like, huh, like it actually requires you to wear a lot of multiple hats, and it actually requires you to kind of be on top of everything you know because as with anything, when if you're on a schedule and you've got to get a project out within X number of days or X number of months, anything that kind of gets missed or kind of gets left off the book, that can derail the whole thing, you know?
Oh yeah, totally. And it was definitely like that at the screen printing shop too. Like every once in a while you just got to check in with the shop and it's like, "Hey, this 5K has a race on Saturday. We're going to be done, right?" And then they were always amazing and on top of things. They're like, "Yes, pretty, you can calm down, but you have to keep an eye on all the moving pieces to just make sure." And that kind of like I don't know. I don't want to like a control freak. I'm not a control freak, but maybe I am. But just being able to keep an eye on all the moving pieces and knowing where things are at certain times, especially when you're juggling like multiple jobs at a time, really helps to know like where you're at, where the deadlines are in relation to where your production is, like those sorts of things.
Right, right. So I want to shift gears a little bit. So you originally started off with ECU and then you moved to Asheville,
Mhm.
and then you decided to stay in Asheville after you graduated. What was the film scene like over there at that time? Because because when you think of filmmaking in North Carolina, usually you think of either Charlotte, where movies like Shallow Hal and the most recent one, the Treasure of Foggy Mountain, they were filmed here, and then obviously you have Wilmington, but Asheville really doesn't come to the forefront of the conversation. So can you describe what it was like back then and what it's like now?
Well, when I graduated from college in 2014, it was cool. There were a couple of films like in production, and you could see the actors like hanging out in Nashville. But it was like a big novelty thing. It wasn't like, oh yeah, movies are filmed here all the time. Like, oh, film crew was here last week, like it is in like Atlanta.
Mhm.
Like Masterminds with Zach Galifianakis was being filmed this summer after I graduated, and some of my contemporaries that I graduated with like worked on that film. And that was very, very cool to know that Kirsten Rigg was coming into Mela, you know. Mela is an Indian restaurant downtown for reference, anybody not based in Nashville. But like she would like there was like a news article that was like Kirsten Wig comes to the salt cave and like hangs out there, which is like this salt like rock room you hang out with and it's supposed to be therapeutic or whatever. And so that was cool. Like there were a couple of big names, but it was definitely not like a hub or anything. But at the same time, there were a lot of independent filmmakers who were also graduating from similar programs or were just artsy in general and were like, I'm ready to go into a visual medium. For me personally, I can't speak for the entire film scene. It was a lot of musicians. There's a ton of DIY musicians then and now, and music without music videos doesn't go very far, and films without scores doesn't go very far. So music and film coming together is a really beautiful place. So Asheville
Mhm.
is known for music. That is something that is undeniable in terms of like, oh, there's a very cool music scene there because all the hippies play music, right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool to collaborate with people. And even now, most of my freelance work is in music videos. So
So most of the film work in the Asheville area is indie, right?
yes, I would
Okay.
say so.
Gotcha,
Or
gotcha.
commercial. I mean, I've done like the Travel Channel loves to come here and be like, Asheville's a great place to come and visit because I think something like 75% of our hotel tax has to go to advertising. So like sometimes that does go to video projects.
Really?
Yeah, it's something crazy and like kind of a big deal because, you know, we it would be great if some of that could go to like infrastructure or I don't know, affordable housing or things like that. But yeah, a lot of it goes to advertising to get more tourists to come to Asheville.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because you never really think about that. I mean, in my mind, I've always had this image of Asheville being like San Francisco, but in the mountains. Like
Yeah,
just
it's kind of sad. It's really hard to live here affordably.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't want to rabbit trail the whole
Mhm.
socioeconomic discussion about living
Oh
in
yeah,
Asheville,
sorry.
but I mean, no, because I could easily get drawn down that rabbit hole, so I have to kind of like
Mhm.
watch myself. Um, but I imagine that being an artist in that environment isn't too ideal or too easy, right?
No, especially not these days. Like when I first graduated college, like I had a two-bedroom apartment and my half of the rent was $400, right? So
Hmm.
$800 a month for like a two-bedroom apartment in North Asheville. That's super nice. Now, like a studio apartment is like I can't remember if it was 12 or $1,400 a month, but it's like 12 or $1,400 a month to live in an apartment. Like it is very expensive to live here, and it's very sad because a lot of people have had to move. A lot of filmmakers have had to move to Atlanta. A lot of folks have just moved to other cities. Yeah, even like musicians, they go to Nashville. So it is hard to make it work here, but I like to think that it'll get better, I hope.
So what are y'all doing to kind of to kind of retain the talent? Because I think this transitions pretty well with your film festival, the Cat Fly Film Festival.
Yeah, Catfly is trying to help retain talent here. We're still like trying to grow and figure out our way on how to make this better. My dream is one day to have enough money to provide grants to indie filmmakers so they can shoot here. We also do a lot of our screenings at different places versus like always doing it at the same movie theater or something, so that I can showcase Asheville as a shooting locations to potential out of town filmmakers, because Catfly is open to the entire Southeast. And if they can be like, wow, Asheville's a pretty place, we should shoot things here. So like Dirty Dancing has been shot here. Like you can go to the place where Dirty Dancing was shot, and it's really beautiful. And lots of different movies have been shot here. And I think exposing folks to the beauty of it is what will help people remember that, you know, there are amazing locations here that really can't be beat. And a lot of times the local business owners are like stoked to have you versus like Atlanta or New York, where they're just kind of like, well, I think you're going to break everything. No, or like, this is my fee for that, you know?
Yeah, they've kind of, gotten a little bit arrogant because, they've gotten so used to it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so so I did do a little bit of reading about your film festival before we got started, but for those of of us who are watching and aren't aware, can you dive a little bit into the history of Catfly, how it got started, who started it, and what your well, I guess you already mentioned what your mission was, but I guess kind of go into detail about what you're what else you're trying to do um, in terms
Yeah,
of
we
promoting talent.
well, we want to provide a platform for indie filmmakers to screen their work. That's always been like the sum up, like quick sentence of it all. And I feel like we've done a really good job. We screened over 100 indie films since its inception 7 years ago. It started with a small team of filmmakers who all worked together on a film in Atlanta called Good Hair, the movie. Um, and it was this couple directors who made this really cute rom-com about these two couples who both have really cool hair, and then one of them uses the last of the other's conditioner on like the pivotal first day of her dream job. And it was so sad that happened, but at the end, you know, they make up, spoiler alert. But it was called Good Hair, and they were made by comedians. So these comedians did stand up, and they were like, hey, well, like a couple of the actors in the movie are taking this on the road. So we're going to do a stand up. Three of us are going to do stand up comedy, and then we're going to screen this 20-minute film. And I was just like, you know what? We should do this in Asheville, right? Like, if you're already going all across the Southeast, like, let's just do it here. It'll be a fun little thing. Like, and then me and the couple of PAs from Asheville and the line producer were just like, all right, cool, let's figure this out. And then we started getting emails from other filmmakers in the area being like, hey, we heard we're doing this. We have this film too. It just kind of grew into like a 3-day festival. And we were totally ready to be like the punk band playing to the empty room, but like every single night sold out the very first year. And so we were all just like, oh, maybe we should just like keep doing this and see how it goes. So we did like a Halloween and then another annual, and now it's 7 years later, and you know, programmers come and go, but I'm still the one that is left. And yeah, I'm really excited for this next upcoming year because we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up to keep the magic going.
So you're pretty much the only, I guess, to use a music lingo, the last member of the original lineup to kind of
Yeah, I
maintain
guess you
this.
could say that.
I,
Yeah, folks will, you know, they move on or move away or do whatever. So I'm the one that's still in Asheville and just kind of trying to pull things together. And we kind of cycle through. Like some years people will be like, yes, I do have availability to help with things, and other years will be like, I'm so sorry, my schedule's so full, you know.
right, right. So, so is it mainly just you running everything, or what?
Yeah, right now I'm mostly like deciding what kind of programming. So programming director is my other title in addition to founder. My friend Rome is like helping me with the programming lineup as well. His title is senior programmer, and we're also working on this music video showcase together because he's a garage band indie musician in addition to a filmmaker, and he's
Mhm.
a really amazing writer and editor. And so he was like, you know, I love music, I love film, let's bring it together. And I really want like a networking event for us like music minded film people. So we lately have been doing, this will be number 2 coming up on February 23rd. And we are showcasing projects that have been made within like 50 miles of Asheville that feature a local band and a local filmmaker made the project. So that'll be really cool. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially it's coming for the next few weeks. I mean,
Yeah, I know, right?
so
And then we have our next annual, I'm going to say annual in air quotes, even though this is like a virtual podcast, because we did have to miss a year because of COVID, which was a
right.
bummer. So we're like year 6.5 of the annual festival. Like it's year 7 of the organization, but like the 6th time we're doing the annual fest. And that always takes place in the spring, and it's going to be 4 days long this year.
Mhm.
Um, so the first day is kind of like a pre-party, and we do what's called BYOF, Bring Your Own Film. So it's like an open mic, but for filmmakers. An open projector is what it's also known as. And whoever shows up within the first, like up until like the hour and a half programming slot is filled, whoever comes up with a jump drive can just screen. And it's in the order of when you get there and sign up. So
Right.
kind of like karaoke style as well. And I love that because it's very egalitarian. Like you don't have a judging panel that's like saying yes or no to your film. Like you were just the person that got there and there's your film. And we do have some rules, like if there's any hate speech in it or if it's like transphobic or anything like that, like we will turn it off. But like the film being bad isn't a reason to turn it off. Like that's a beautiful place for students to like screen their film, get some feedback, see how it is. And it's not just for students either, but anybody who's doing like a first time film, or like it's really cool to get an audience reaction. It's like a test screening, but you don't have to do the work of assembling one. Um, because there's just something beautiful about hearing like the laughs or the gasps or anything from a film, and it gives you a feedback before it's like finished that like, oh, people laughed here, but this was supposed to be sad. Like maybe you need to revisit your edit. Um, and then the Friday night of the festival will be like high production value kind of things, like more dramas and documentaries. And that's going to be at a wedding venue called Haiku I Do that is so beautiful. And that's like the red carpet reception.
Mhm.
And then Saturday is our community night. And so that's going to be like the weird DIY, like scary movies. Like when you think of indie film and you think of weird movies, like that's what's going to screen that night. And then we're going to do a feature spotlight on Sunday at Grill Movie House.
Wow,
And
you guys. I mean, that sounds really, really cool.
oh, thanks. I'm glad you like it.
Well, I was gonna say because this is the first time that I've had a film festival organizer say, yeah, we just welcome all filmmakers and whoever shows up, they can just play their film because uh,
Mhm,
because I kind of take it for granted that every film festival kind of follows the same structure, you know. So
mhm.
so what I find so fascinating about you guys is the fact that you're not really too constrained by convention, you know.
Oh,
Um,
thanks. That's what we go for
I
sure.
mean, you guys really are indie. I mean, when you say you're indie, you really, really mean it. Um, but
I
so,
try. I don't know. I have a music background a little bit. Like I don't play music, but I got my start in film because a lot of my friends were musicians and I
yeah.
sucked at playing music. So I picked up a camera and filmed them. But yeah, we really like to incorporate the BYOF thing on the first night because it's just so important for people to be able to feel like they can have their film be seen. And then the other nights we do have a judging panel, but it's still mostly indie people submitting.
So I do have to ask. So so you've got this particular style where anybody who's made a film can come and show it. Um, and there's no judgment, and there really aren't that many rules. I mean, there are rules, but they aren't like
They're
the kind
fair
of
rules,
rules.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. So, so when it comes to judging, like, I mean, is there a criteria that they follow when they judge these movies? Are there like prizes, or do they get bragging rights? How does that work out?
Mm, So as far as choosing the lineups for like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we do have a panel of judges who review every single submission that come in. I've seen like maybe all but 4 movies we've ever gotten myself, and then there are also other programmers in there. And We base it on different criteria. So there, like, we use Film Freeway to accept submissions, and
Mhm.
then judges can go through and hit stars on different categories that or whoever is in charge of programming for that year has put. Like, so it's like, oh, production value, and then it's 0 to 10 stars. Sound mixing, sound design, editing. Regional relevance is one I'm really proud of, because it's like the closer to Asheville you are, the more relevant you are to the festival, or if you're like in Greenville or Atlanta versus, like, maybe further away places. We've taken film submissions from as far south as Texas and as far north as Baltimore and considered that the Southeast. But yeah, so there's like judgment criteria in that way, and it kind of gives it a number value. Like, if we know something is under 6 and like 4 or 5 different judges have all like created that average, we know maybe that's not the right ones. And then if it's like closer to 8 or 9 or maybe even 10, and multiple judges have given it that number that's been averaged out by the program, then we know that those are the ones we want to look closely at.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Because because I'm just trying to figure out like how how the system would work when it's not necessarily following the same rules or the same structure as the majority of film festivals and I guess anywhere around the world. um,
What would you say their criteria is? 'Cause I feel like sound design is a fair like criteria.
yeah, that's
Like
true.
production value. Maybe not so much the regional relevance, but it does depend. Like, if it was a genre fest, like, is it related to the genre? Luckily for the Spring Festival, we take anything and everything into consideration, but we do have a different one called Catfly Halloween, and it's only like horror and sci-fi and experimental movies, and then
So,
that's like an added like criteria for that specific event. Much like the music video showcase is only music videos.
so when did you start the Catfly Halloween one?
That was like right after the very first Catfly Spring, just because it went so well. And filmmakers really love horror movies. Like, indie filmmakers, almost anybody has made. Like, have you ever made a horror movie?
Yeah. Actually, yeah, actually, if you go onto if you go onto the channel and you look up the Fifth Horseman, that was a student film I shot back in I think back in '08, and it was a nod to Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Horse, or sorry, the seventh or something to do with the Horseman.
Yeah,
It
my
made a lot
senior
more
project
sense.
was like a nod to the Blair Witch Project for a local haunted location called Helen's Bridge that's here in Asheville. Like, everybody who is like a filmmaker has like their heart in camp horror, I think. Like,
Right.
they may not be a horror filmmaker, but they appreciate horror film for what it brings to filmmaking as a whole.
And another thing too, it's just one of those genres that you could just easily slip into. I mean, without even
Mhm.
realizing it, because and I'm speaking from myself here because when I wrote the treatment for the Fifth Horseman, I was just thinking to myself, I want it to be this psychological, dark, gritty, you know thing that's a nod to the classic films that I used to watch as a kid, but at the same time, it kind of it kind of felt contemporary too, and you end up
Mhm.
kind of making a horror film almost by accident without even realizing it. Um,
Mhm.
it's such an easy line to cross, but sometimes people just find a comfort spot in there. So Brittany, I want to circle back to what we were talking about earlier. Um, so walk me through the process of what it's like to run a film festival, especially in your case um, because it sounds like for the most part you're doing it solo. What are the responsibilities and what kind of goes into making sure that you pull off a successful festival?
I feel like first and foremost, you have to get your venues in line, because if you don't have a place to do it, then you're not ready to do it.
Right, right.
And there have been moments where it's been like, this venue's gonna work out, right? Yes. Like, having those locked and loaded is like pretty crucial in my opinion. And then everything else will fall into place if you have that in place. I think number two, you open submissions. And then you start collecting them. While you're collecting them, you also get your art together. So every event that we have is like branded pretty much. Like, you know, we have our logo and our color scheme, but we hire a different artist to do the poster every year, and we usually hire a different animator to do it as well. So the poster art is going to be what ends up being like the most promotional, and then the animation is going to be at the beginning of each screener, and it's usually a little bit of a surprise at least. Like there have been times when we've done like teasers of a little bit, but so that's when you start pulling in the other folks. It's like you need your design team, you need your animation person. And then from there, you start reviewing the submissions, deciding what's going to screen. Sometimes it comes together like later. Like there was one year we did a doc block just because we got a lot of documentary entries that year. And I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? We're just going to put these documentaries together. They're all really good. And there are some people who will show up just to see documentaries because they don't want to see anything else, which I was very surprised to find. Like there's some documentary lovers out there. And then as we get closer, a lot of it is communicating with the filmmakers like, hey, you've been accepted. Awesome. So here are all the places. Here's everything. Here's a whole itinerary of everything that's going to happen. Do you need a place to stay? Please let us know. And then, like, I put my feelers out and try to find somewhere for them to stay if they're out of town and don't live in Asheville.
Mhm.
And yeah, there's just a lot of little logistical pieces that I could talk about forever. Like, oh, we did this little thing and that little thing, but ultimately, if you have the venues and you have the programming, it's going to happen and it'll be okay. Is what I have to tell myself to sleep at night.
So I want to ask. So how easy or how difficult is it to kind of secure a venue? Because I've had heard horror stories where people have said, yeah, we thought we had this venue, but then at the last minute they had to cancel because of X, Y, or Z. Like, can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a nightmare scenario. No fun at all. Hopefully, if they do that before things are printed, because once you print things, that's really expensive and very specific on the things you have to do. But luckily, there are a lot of film-friendly places, and like I kind of always have like backups in the back of my mind, like if something goes wrong on this day, who can I call just in case? But generally, there's a rule like if a place isn't built yet, like sometimes it's like, oh, event center coming soon. If it's not built yet, you cannot book it. Like,
Right. I
like
mean that sounds obvious, you know.
it sounds obvious, but like it's like, oh no, we're totally gonna be ready by March. Like we're up and running. Like this is gonna be great. And then they're like, actually, construction was delayed a little bit, and we're just like, oh no, that's a worst nightmare scenario. So they have to already be built and in existence. It's always nice when they send you contracts because you're like, I have like a contract to fall back on. But
Mhm.
I don't know, just picking places that do need programming really helps because and who thinks you're cool. So Dissolver is where we're doing the music video showcase and also um the community nights Saturday screening of the spring festival, and they are so cool. Like they are filmmakers also, and they're generally really good at like scheduling their stuff in advance. So Dissolver is a brewery that does their tagline is brewed until surreal, and they have like really cool like marketing and stuff. So I feel awesome when I'm working with them. And then yeah, or if you put down a deposit, like that's a beautiful thing too. Like once you put money down, you know it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, and that's another thing I want to ask you too, because I imagine some of these venues they kind of expect some sort of deposit or something before they can fully commit. Like,
Mhm.
is that the exception or the norm?
Mm, it depends on what type of venue it is and what size. Like if it is a place that can pretty much only sell their time, like wedding venues, they will probably like want money in advance versus like a brewery or something, they're gonna be open either way. And then they can like set you up in the side room or whatever and everything will be
Okay,
okay with that. And with
okay.
those, it's usually like a bar minimum sort of situation too. Not to give all my secrets away, but that's always really nice because this is an indie DIY project, so it's always super nice when people are willing to like.
Oh, looks like Brittany just stepped out for a second. Let's see if we can get her back in.
Okay, hello, are we good?
Yeah, yeah, we're
Oh,
good.
sorry, I'm not sure why that cut out like that. What? Where did we leave off?
Um, I I think we were talking about, was it the I think I was asking you the question about whether it was the exception or the norm, to put
Mhm.
deposit down for venues, and you were telling me, you know, typically if it's like a bar, they really aren't going to charge you anything.
That's not always the case. I also have like ins with folks just because I'm a pretty active community member too. And
Okay.
or like, you know, different people of the past have been like, "Oh, I work at this place. Like, we can use their place because I'm an employee there." And that like helps ensure that it's really going to happen because we're not so much random people as like, "Oh, these are community members. Like, they want to help," you know?
Yeah, yeah, and especially in the Asheville area because Asheville, it's always had this kind of small town vibe to it. Just tucked away
Mhm.
in the mountains. So I kind of have this notion that, that if you ask someone if for a favor, if they can use your place for or their place for something, I kind of get the feeling they're going to say yes, as opposed to Charlotte, where it's like, well, you need to talk to my army of lawyers first, and then you got to put this stupid amount of money that will probably take you like 20 years to pay off, and yeah,
Yeah, we have it
it,
like
it's
that. That's
stressful.
that's hard to do with like the budget we're working with, but like there's this group in Charlotte that we actually collaborated with, and my point of this all is like breweries are a beautiful place to have events.
Hmm.
So there's this group called Films on Tap. I'm not sure if they're active since the pandemic, but they are so cool. And we partnered with them. Usually they're based in Charlotte. And the first time I went to their event, it was at Birdsong Brewing, and super cool. But basically, what they do is they program short films and then they pair them each with a flight of beer. So each film is put with like a flight cup of like a beer that matches the tone of the film. And I was like, man, that is so cool. Like we have so many like breweries in Asheville. Like we should have these folks up here and like pick a brewery. We actually picked it Wedge Brewing, and it was a very cool little collaboration that we had. But they've done a ton around Charlotte, and it's super cool. And that movie Good Hair that I talked about earlier, that was like kind of the start of all of Catfly, screamed at the one at Birdsong. And our friend who lived in Asheville, who was a producer on the film, was like, "Hey, these guys are cool. We should like link up and bring them up to Asheville." And it's like, yes, we definitely should. But breweries are generally very cool because they're artists too. Like their marketing people are artists, their brewers are chefs. Like breweries are just a very magical place where it's not traditional art, but it is an art.
It's edible art. That's what, well, drinkable art. That's what it is.
Yeah, totally.
I will say this, like I do love going to breweries, not because I'm interested in the beer, because I am not an alcoholic, and nobody at the Movie Pope podcast is, but
Mhm.
I am just a sucker for the t-shirts because
Oh
my
yeah, so
god,
good.
my god, like the artwork that goes into these t-shirts, it's like, who comes up with this kind of stuff? This is amazing. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of this brewery. It's called Wooden Robot here in Charlotte.
I have actually.
I have been looking for an excuse for me and my friends to go there because every time we go to a brewery, I make it a rule to buy a T-shirt over there.
Oh, on behalf of all breweries everywhere, thank you for doing that. That
I
really
mean,
are what like help the Asheville economy keep going.
well, I was gonna say too. I was gonna say too because when I was growing up, I mean, there weren't that many breweries, in the Charlotte area. But then,
Mhm.
as soon as as soon as the millennial came of age around 2011, 2012, around that time, that's when we started seeing a lot of breweries pop up. And every article that I read at that time was like, yeah, Asheville's number one export is the brewery because it's like springing up all over North Carolina. And
Mhm.
I'm like, they're absolutely right. You guys have definitely successfully imported the independent brewery to all over the state, where it's now you can't walk down the street without running into like an indie brewery,
Oh
and
yeah, I know
that's a great
Noda
thing.
is like huge, right?
Yeah, what I was gonna say, like, have you ever been to Charlotte before? Because
Oh
Noda
yeah.
is like, yeah, Noda is indie. It's like indie central. Um,
Hmm.
because it used to be the Plaza area, but I'm not sure about that anymore. But Noda is like a huge like indie hub, like, and it's funny too because one of the first guests that I had on the podcast last year, um Jay and Bradley, they run the independent picture house up in Noda.
Oh,
Um
cool. I didn't even know that there was an independent theater there.
yeah. They were the success. Yeah, they were the successors to the Manor House Theater, which sadly closed in the aftermath of the
Mhm.
pandemic. So I'll be sure to put link that episode down below in the description so y'all can check it out. Um, but um, uh, but I do want to shift gears a little bit because because based on previous conversations that I've had with film festival organizers in the past, there's always been this sort of collaborative effort with the community to try to promote the local talent scene. I remember when I talked to Dara of the Alexandria Film Festival, she was telling me
Mm.
about how about how the film festival is trying to work with the community to try to promote local talent, try to not only promote them but also kind of train the next generation of of filmmakers to to not only learn and hone their craft, but to also kind of kind of promote their work in the area to show that Alexandria is is more than just a city across the river from Washington D.C. It's capable of having its own indie art scene. Um, do you guys like have any collaborations in the Asheville area? Do you like work with UNCA or any local universities to try to to try to promote young talent? Like what are you guys doing in terms of that?
Definitely open to working with colleges. We don't currently. I have gone and spoken and given tips to early college students about how to submit to film festivals at Blue Ridge Early College.
Mhm.
My friend at Collaborator Charlotte is was one of the teachers there. She's now at Warren Wilson teaching film. And that's we always offer workshops anytime we have like a major event that turns into multiple days. Like our most recent workshop was like about glitch art in film, and that was pretty interesting. Like we've done panels on diversity before and why that's important and incorporating like different voices into filmmaking. So, oh, and we even had one from these filmmakers called Gilly Bear who are based in Wilmington, and they make like the craziest monsters out of like latex and dollar store stuff. That was like probably my favorite like workshop we ever had was by them because they had this cool, insanely cool movie. It's like one of the most well received movies we've ever screened. Like people were screaming and like yelling and like, oh my god. So it was like to this horror movie that was about a frog that gets into like toxic waste, and then like this guy is like abusing the frog, and so the frog exacts revenge, but he like turns into this giant monster frog. And so they built this amazing like frog monster suit, and I was like, you guys have got to come up and like talk about how to make this kind of stuff because they do way more than just this. They make like decomposing skeletons, and they talked in their little talk about how like, yeah, you have to make like 4 skeletons, so there are different like rates of decomposition. And I'm just like, yes, tell me all the things about how to make like weird creepy latex models of things. Like
I just had this image of you sitting there taking copious notes, and you're like, hold on, stop at that sentence. Let me get that down. All right,
How
yeah,
much
good. Yeah,
what's the
yeah, go
latex
ahead.
to water ratio? Like, how do you think that? Like, yeah,
So
totally.
the skin decomposes at what rate again? Let me get that down.
I can't tell their secrets, but like if you want some good like horror movie special effects, definitely talk to them because Matt and Delaney are amazing and they are so good at what they do. Like they're on major films now, and when we first talked to them, they were still indie filmmakers, which is something that Catfly really hopes to do. Like, we know we're not Sundance, like we're not screening the best of the best by the most recent by Zach Braff, but we hope to be uplifting the future Zach Braff and giving him or her confidence or them confidence to go off and make their cool movies.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because everybody has to start off somewhere, you know.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about about these local film festivals because you know not every like you said, not everybody can be Sundance and not everybody can be Tribeca, but at the same time, it's important to have film festivals such as yourselves because it's the only way people are going to be able to get their work out and get word out and know what's working and what isn't working. So I definitely salute you for what y'all are doing.
Thanks. And it's also really important to like put people in a position to meet the people that will help catalyst them to the future of what they're gonna do too. Like one of my favorite things to do is play professional matchmaker. Like I see one film, I see another film, and I'm like, you know what? I bet these two filmmakers would love each other. And more than once has happened. If I put them in the same screening block, they meet each other, they love each other, and then, like a year and a half to 2 years later, I'm getting a film with both of their names in the credits. And I'm like, I know where they met.
Oh, they took each other's last names.
Yeah, I know, right? It's so cute.
So Brittany, I mean, I can go on for hours and hours
Oh,
chatting
me
with you. You
too.
were such a delight, but
Well,
I do want to
thanks.
go, but I do want to go ahead and just start to wrap things up a bit. But before we do, can if people want to learn more about you or your work, where can they go and how can they follow you?
You can go to catflyfilmfest.com. That's the main source of information. It has our upcoming events and ways you can submit if you are a filmmaker, or how to reach out to me if you want to volunteer or just talk or just become friends and collaborators because I love meeting new people. You can follow us at Catfly Indie Film on Instagram. That's like the overall organization because I hope to one day grow beyond just the festival and like offer grants and do like filmmaker retreats and go on film tours and just do way more than just the screening events. Um, and you can find us on Facebook at Catfly Film Fest.
Excellent, excellent. Now, as this is a movie podcast, this I always love to ask my guests this question at the end of every interview episode. But Brittany, what's a movie or TV show you've seen recently that you feel the world has to know about? Like they
I
have to
just
drop everything and watch it right now.
I just saw Poor Things starring Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo, and oh
Oh
my
my
god,
god.
it was so weird and so problematic, but in an amazing and conscious way, and so like pretentious, but on purpose. And oh my gosh, like that movie blew me away, and I've been thinking about it since last Saturday. I've been thinking about it for a week, and I can't stop thinking about it.
Holy
It's
shit.
so deep. Like,
Holy sh- Brittany, Brittany, that's the next movie we're gonna review tomorrow.
what? No way!
Yep, the movie.
I
Yep.
literally didn't know that.
Yeah. My,
Listeners.
my fr- my friend and I, we are going to review that movie tomorrow. And I remember texting him after watching. I was like, there are only two words to describe it: steampunk sexcapade.
Yes,
That's
that's
basically what
it.
it was. And
Totally. And like it was feminist as hell too. Like I loved
it
how
was very.
like cool Emma Stone's character was, but also like they were so gross to her in the beginning. But then I was like, oh my god, I don't know if I can finish this like misogynistic movie. And then it like carried on, and I was like, oh, that was the point. I get it. Maybe I don't, but I think I do.
I was gonna offer my take, but I'm like, nope, Luca, save it for tomorrow. Save it for when you
Oh,
chat
sorry.
with them.
Yes, please save it for your tomorrow.
Yes, when you and the movie Pope are doing the review, that's when you can let it all out, along with a bunch of other things, because I took copious amount of mental notes on that.
And I
It's just so
honestly
weird
didn't
you
even know.
mentioned that.
I didn't even know how weird it was gonna be. Like, it was my boyfriend's birthday, and I was like, all right, he told me recently he wanted to have the movie experience, and I just like read the like 10 different movies that were on the list, and that sounded the most interesting. And I was like, he'll probably like that. And I took him to it, and we were both just like, whoa, that was not what I was expecting from this movie. But it was amazing, and kudos to everyone involved.
While we're on the subject too, because I think it won 2 Golden Globes this year. Um, but yeah, I think obviously one for best actress for Emma Stone. I think one for best film in a comedy. I think it was like in a comedy
Was it a
category.
comedy? Wasn't it a comedy though? Like kind of, but I don't know.
I might have to go back and take a look at that. But I was going to ask, did you see that movie, The Holdovers?
No, I did not. What was that?
So I was going to say, if you want to hear about our take, you can check out the episode we released just yesterday. But it's set in 1970s New England, and it's about Paul Giamatti plays this classics professor who is assigned to basically babysit some students whose families didn't want them home for the Christmas holiday.
Oh,
And and it was such a surprisingly good movie. Like, because when I first saw the trailer back in July when we saw Oppenheimer, I was like, oh, it's just some quirky movie, whatever. But then when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is really, really damn good. Like, this is really, really good. I can see why Paul Giamatti, was nominated and won. Like, he did a phenomenal job.
Oh, I
The
can't wait to see it then. The
the
other one
only
that comes to mind for me is Barbie, speaking of awards and Oscars and everything. Oh, Barbie was so good.
uh, as part of the Barbenheimer debate, I know a lot of people are like either for Oppenheimer or Barbie. I definitely loved Oppenheimer. Like after
I
the
don't know.
movie,
I think the move was to watch both. You had to Barbie at brunch and then Oppenheimer in the evening.
I mean, but Oppenheimer was such a long movie because my friends and I we went to go see it at 11 o'clock. We didn't in the morning, by the way. We didn't leave until probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, it was that long.
Yeah, man, I did this thing where I was going to see it in IMAX. I was like, I'm gonna drive to Atlanta and see it in IMAX, and then like life just kept getting in the way, and I never got to see it in IMAX. And I was like, but I needed to see it in the crazy like film way that it was intended, and then I just never saw it. And I was like, but I'm sad to not see it in the film IMAX, and it was a whole thing.
Well, I was gonna say, like, if there is one movie I would recommend that you check out, it's The Holdovers because it's
Okay.
surprising. And then another thing too, because I grew up watching movies from the 60s and 70s, it has that aesthetic to it. Like everything about it, just like if you watched it, you would have thought to yourself, "Wow, like why are they showing a movie from the 1970s now? Like that's kind of weird." And then you come to realize, oh, they only made it last year, and wow, this is really, really good. But I can get carried away here. But
Sorry, me too.
but I was gonna say, I just want to thank y'all for taking the time to watch this episode. If you guys have any questions or concerns, or if there are any movies or TV shows you want us to review on the podcast, let us know down in the comments below. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to check out other episodes from season 1 of the podcast, as well as other content on the channel. And just so you know, I did start a new channel recently called The Constable, where all of my video essays are going to be uploaded. So if you just want to hear me talk about a bunch of crazy things from, I don't know, from peanuts to why light bulbs are yellow, be sure to check out that channel. But for the Movie Pope, thank you so much for watching us, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Ciao, Bella.